G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Christie-David, and I run a mortgage broking business called Atelier Wealth, where we specialize in helping property investors start out and scale up their property portfolios. And what we say is a big key to that is making confident property decisions, which is why we bring experts in each and every episode to our podcast so they can share their knowledge and their insights. And I just want to preface this by saying anything we discuss is general in nature and not intended to give advice. So today's guest is I want to call you a repeat offender in the nicest possible way. Matt Sharp from Sharp Property Buyers. Welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me, Aaron. And I've got to say, I'm pretty privileged to be sitting here. You've had some great guests of late. So, excited to be back, mate.
Thanks, mate. Well, you certainly joined the ranks. You're a great stand-up guy. And like you said, really fortunate. Like the guests that come on, yourself included, super generous with their time, their insights. I really just want to help investors make better quality decisions and also homeowners, because I guess we cut across, that niche as well. But I'm very fortunate, mate. So many people have been able to come on, and I guess we're just raising the bar really in terms of quality property education.
Yeah.
And I'm really kind of keen to see what's going on, because you are really an expert in the Central Coast market as well, having been operating there for a few years, being a local as well. Kind of will lift the hood on what's going on the Central Coast. I often say that we're the south, you're on the north side, very similar-ish type markets in the sense that, people looking for that sea change, tree change a little bit more as well. Great way for families to move out of Sydney. And we'll talk about, I guess, what that transitions look like for people that have moved out of Sydney off the back of, say, rate rises and wanting that lifestyle. I think that COVID really kind of opened that corridor up. And now people are embracing that, going, actually, we can have the best of both worlds. We can still have our Sydney lifestyle, but get bang for our buck when we move up north or south as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And mate, thanks again for having me on and all the content that you share. And like you said, you've had some huge guests on here, and there is still a lot of misinformation out there. So, some of the guests that you've had on here, like Sam Gordon, Paul Glossop, who are friends of mine, they've got great messaging and a lot of experience as well. So,
correct.
Mate,
hey, we're all friends. The industry's, and this is what you start to realize, mate, when cream rises to the top, we're all friends. There's enough, there's enough people out there to help. I've got some great mates that are brokers that are absolutely killing it. And I don't think you're ever envious or jealous of what they're achieving. It's like, hey, mate, you keep achieving, you rise to the top. We all kind of come along for the ride as well. And I often look at what they're doing and go, hey, mate.
Yeah, definitely.
They're always a call away.
Look, we're all business owners and we're all learning as well. And if you can leverage on other people's experience, if they're a little bit further ahead of you in the game than what we are, I think that's always helpful as well. And to be honest with you, it's one of the reasons why I like coming on these types of podcasts is because, someone a little bit further behind me in their journey might be able to capture a little bit of information. Or if someone's out there and they don't do this as a job, they might grab some bits of gold for their own investing journey as well.
Spot on. I think one of the big things you and I have in common is where we call deep in the trenches, right? So for those that don't know, I've mentioned it a few times, I'm very blessed with a 2 and a 4-year-old, 2 girls. Keep me on my toes. And you've got 2 small kids. I think you're just a little bit behind in terms of ages, right?
Yeah, 3 and 1.
Yes.
I've got a girl, Remy, who's 3, and a boy, Kai, who's 1.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy for this podcast to run for about 6 hours, mate. I'm in meetings all day, according to the wife. But no, very, very fortunate and blessed. But we're talking about it off air. It's challenging in itself, running a business and also running a family and dodging the illnesses that daycare brings home. But certainly, it's just the best time of life. We've been lucky enough this year to travel over to Fiji as a family and also Bali. So a lot of fun there. A bit different to what the trips used to be like to Bali when I was younger, where I was just surfing all day and then having bintangs in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Now I spend all day in the pool on the slide and probably only having kind of like 1 or 2 bintangs in the afternoon.
Yeah.
They're usually quite warm by the time I get to finish them. So, but no, it's great. It's good fun.
It is. It's a real evolution. I think even where we are in life, it's almost like we have a huge amount of empathy, right? We're both time poor now. We're probably still wanting to achieve, but you got to achieve more with less time. So you go, well, hang on, I need professionals, whether we choose to delegate or outsource, home chores, for example, or accounting and tax or bookkeeping, whatever it's going to be on a personal and professional level. You go, now I need a real trusted team around me to buy back time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you say that because I actually have someone that mows my lawns for me.
Mate, I came yesterday.
And it's not like, it sounds a bit snobby saying that, but yeah, you know, if I can buy any time, that's what I'll do. But one thing I feel really, really fortunate for is our position. My family's position is in my wife Jackie and our kids, and the fact that we have our family home squared away at Wombrel. Like, we bought that property 10 years ago, and I think if anyone's young listening to this and you're in a position to possibly buy and maybe just get your foot on the ladder before all of this family stuff's happened, definitely encourage you to do so, because, you know, we help a lot of young families now try and navigate through the market. And of course, the majority of young families out there probably don't engage a buyer's agent, but I just see the challenge that they face. And, you know, we're sitting here now saying it's difficult to run a business and, you know, raise young kids. But if I was to throw in trying to find a family home and navigate the financial market and, you know, lending and whatnot, that would just be a whole nother kind of stress for me. So each week I'm kind of, I guess, humbled by the fact that, you know, we're very lucky to have a roof over our head, and we're a fair way down that kind of property journey, if you like. So, yeah.
Man, I'm glad you say. I feel like, we connect on so many levels, especially at that level of contentment. I'd probably say it's something that I've found I've really made peace with that. I think we always push for growth, like we were talking before about, you know, business growth, for example, or wealth growth. And you're like, I think contentment. I've been dealing with friends on the weekend. I was like, I'm just at a happy place. Like, if exactly what you say, like, you look at the stability and security that comes with having a roof over your head, and that's our family home, and nothing can take that away. Mate, rates have gone up. Our repayments have gone up significantly as well. I feel that empathy for a lot of people, but it's like that feeling just will never go away, which is, this is our home. And imagine, I don't know, Jackie or Bernadette's pregnant with our second, and it's like we're trying to buy a home, stressed out of your nut, for example, going to go down to one income, trying to make ends meet, bring a new baby into the world. And we were there, like trying to rent, for example, while we're trying to find our dream home. And you get there and you're like, oh, nothing can replace that feeling. And I wish more people knew about that feeling, because we talk about very logically, look for the best interest rate, borrowing capacity, get the loan, find the right home. But it's like, there is a feeling that no one tells you about with having the security and that ability to say, we're not having to move and we're not at the mercy of a landlord as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think it just comes from a feeling within, and like you said, gratitude, contentment with your property. Of course, you know, I'd have the ability to sell my property now and get a larger loan and whatnot, but choose not to do so. But it's something I'm a little bit sensitive towards. Like, I grew up, I had a great upbringing as a child, but a single mom, and we rented a lot. Yeah. So I guess, you know, one of my first goals as kind of a teenager was, okay, I want to own my own home, or at least buy the family home, just so we've kind of got that stability. So it's something I'm reminded of a lot, and, you know, something that I'm very, very grateful for. But as you know, you work really hard, you make a lot of sacrifices along the way, and property, nothing happens quickly. And if someone tells you it does, they're probably lying. So really, really fortunate. Yeah. And also, definitely anyone out there with young kids, you know, we don't want to be doing any renovations or anything like that to the home, because the house is just getting trashed. My wife's got my car at the moment, which isn't overly flash. It's just a MROC ute. The kids have been in it for a week, and it's unrecognisable.
Dude, I'm glad you say that. Everyone asked me when I sold my nice car before I had kids. Like, what are you doing? What's wrong? The business not going well. I was like, I'm going to have kids, mate. They're going to ruin a Golf GTI. I was like, mate, get rid of this thing. And same thing, contentment. I was like, this is not the time. And that's what even when we were looking to buy, it's like, hey, I'm not going to buy something that needs a lot of work. We need to be able to move in this and have this for the next 5 years without much work on it, because pick out battles. I'm not going to be in the throes and midst of renovations while we've got 2 screaming kids and I have access to our kitchen for a while. Like, yes, the finished product is excellent, but you still got to go through that element of pain and that livability as well, right? Same, I guess, when you're building your property portfolio, it's like at the start, it's going to be harder, but you need to kind of come through the end, and you've really got to pick the time in your life. And I'm having a chat with a couple of boys from the team around, you know, 20s, 30s and 40s, like different money stages in your life. It's, call it seasons, for example. Like, you've been through a stage, you're talking about like traveling. There's no less responsibility. Whereas now the holidays change completely. Life is different, right? And you're going to a different stage in your life, and you really go into that caretaker dad mode, which is I need to put down some good roots for my family to have that security and stability. And I think for your children, it's giving them good money habits and a good foundation and going, mate, buying property for them in 20-something years' time is not going to be easy. But if we're set up and setting them up, isn't that an unfair advantage, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually starting to see that now with, generations that have passed and even say, for example, like the baby boomers, they're putting their kids that are, our age
Yes.
in a really, really strong position to then go and build their kind of family home and put them in a good position on the property ladder as well. So yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah, nice one. So take us back. Well, what we were originally going to talk about, which is the Central Coast market. How's the change? I guess we've seen rate rise with COVID, which obviously put it on the map, squarely on the map in terms of this is a UB place to live. Rate rises, and then where we are at the moment, because we were talking before, it's still a funny market, right? People waiting for prices to stagnate or fall. Look, it's kind of held its value, which is pretty good, but we haven't seen those massive price drops. So you kind of dealing with that from a buyer sentiment perspective at the moment as well? Or what's the conversations you're having?
Yeah, look, I think over the last sort of 6 months during the kind of the back end of the rate increases, the Central Coast has really shown its resilience in the market. And I think, the Central Coast is really unique in terms of its geographical position, right? Obviously, we're only an hour and a half north of Sydney, so you're in arm's reach of Sydney. You add in the factor of everything that happened with COVID, flexible working conditions, which we were speaking about before as well. The requirement of being in the city 5 days a week is kind of a thing of the past now. Yeah. So, only needing to travel down once or twice a week is an attractive option. But the fact that there's been low listing levels, which I think is pretty consistent throughout most of the markets through Sydney as well. But the uniqueness of the Central Coast, where we have a lot of people that are continually relocating from Sydney, that really does help strengthen that buyer demand.
Yeah.
And in most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, those Sydney buyers are kind of coming in with a bigger budget than what, for example, the local buyer has. Right. So the Sydney relocators can be anyone from first home buyers, and we are seeing a rise in first home buyer activity.
Yeah.
And they can sit anywhere between, 1 and 1.5 mil kind of thing, and sometimes lower.
Yeah.
And then we have, the young professionals, young families, which I was referring to before. Maybe they own in Sydney a 2-bedroom apartment and they're moving through that next season, which you're talking about. So maybe kids are in the equation now. And, let's just assume they're on the northern beaches. They're selling the 2-bedroom apartment. They need to upsize. The stretch is too far for them to get into the 3 or 4-bedroom family home in the beaches.
Yep.
So they're looking for an alternative. And, in a lot of cases, that alternative is the Central Coast. So they're already in the property market, those buyers, right? So they're looking for something around 1.5 to 2 mil.
Yeah.
So they're kind of transacting and upsizing. And then we have the downsizers coming from Sydney again, if we're just sticking with that narrative.
Yeah.
Selling, northern beaches, they could be selling for 3.5 million, looking to kind of release some funds out of that family home. If it was a family home, buy for 2.5 million, pocket $1 million type thing. So that Sydney kind of influence, I think, is quite unique for our market, and it's something that has really underpinned and is one of the major reasons why it continues to go from strength to strength. And then you add that in with, a growing kind of, population, strong economy, new infrastructure, new amenities, and it starts, and then a great lifestyle, of course, and it starts to be a pretty formidable mix.
Yeah, correct. I was reading this article recently, I think Neela Sweeney from the AFR put it out there around the resilience in some of these regional markets. So I think they mentioned Newcastle, Geelong, Wollongong was up there, definitely Central Coast. We considered strong regionals as well. So the metro markets still continue to price people out, but now we're looking for that lifestyle factor, especially around kids, for example, and having that community to be part of rather than being, cooped up in a really small spot, but living in a good location inside Sydney. They're going, well, hang on, can maybe stretch our parameter about an hour outside this this location, and then getting a great lifestyle that comes off the back of that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is, like, We stay in contact with a lot of our clients, so we catch up. I've actually got coffee tomorrow with some great friends who have become great friends of ours who relocated up from the inner west. And you talk about that lifestyle and moving out of Sydney, and they say, like, we're different people. Like, isn't it? They're different, and I know you've experienced it personally. But they're like the kids, for example, friends that we're catching up with tomorrow, their kids are 11 and 9, and they're like, our kids are different, like, than what they were living in Sydney. So I grew up on the Central Coast, so I don't really know too much different, but I think that's so interesting, and if you're seeking kind of a lifestyle change, and then if you want to reduce mortgage, stress or whatnot, these regional markets could be a really, really good option for you.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I personally, I think you initially, and everyone that I've read about that has transitioned, sea change, tree change, for example, that initial part, which, it takes longer to get a cup of coffee, and the birdies that remind me, that's why we moved here. So it's not like instant coffee straight away at the coffee shop. It's there to slow your pace down a little bit, enjoy it, have that real community vibe to it as well. And so if you want to be part of that community, you got to pick up what they're putting down, which is, hey, just chill out a little bit, have a chat to someone. And that's where those relationships are being formed. Whereas Sydney, and you come back in and you see the vibe, right? It's fast paced, and it's I won't say dog eat dog, but it has that pace to it. Whereas you go to Central Coast, you go to South Coast, for example, it's very much tailored around, let's be family centric, let's chill out, enjoy the weekends. You usually bump into people at a park, for example, and that's that friendliness that we're talking about, which sometimes you can't put a price on.
Yeah, exactly.
As well. One of the other big parts that we're seeing, I guess, when we are doing, the second pre-approvals, for example, so 3 months have gone by, someone's in the market, they're missing out, or they just haven't found the property. But a big frustration point is listings and what the property is listed for versus what it sells for. And then I guess that kind of plays into a really poor experience for someone. It's not really the fault of the agent, because ultimately someone's prepared to pay for that property at X. The agent's just there to list the property and try and get it done, right? But I guess you probably see it where it's, I won't say underquoting, but the price guides are kind of throwing people off. And it doesn't matter where. We see it in the inner west all the time. We see it eastern suburbs, South Coast, Central Coast. So take us through, because this is your bread and butter in terms of looking at properties, what they're worth, and benchmarking value. How do you go about that when there's a listed price, mate?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something that comes up daily with us, especially with all of our inquiry, So the first thing I'll say is you really need to understand the market. So I'll just talk about the Central Coast market, but, suburbs on the Central Coast, they're not created equal. It's the same as the South Coast, as the inner west, right? So some areas and some suburbs are far more desirable than others. And in some cases that's reflective of course, it's reflective in the guide or in the kind of sale price. And then even within that suburb, the streets aren't created equally, because maybe the aspect, maybe they're in a different school catchment, they're on the wrong side of the main road. And it's really interesting where we are, because like I said, we do have that influx of buyers coming from Sydney, so they're not overly educated in the market. Okay, they're reaching out and saying, "Oh, we want to buy on the Central Coast." Well, okay, whereabouts on the Central Coast, right? So the first thing I'd say is get really in tune with the true value of that property, and just, I wouldn't say ignore the price guide, but kind of just put it to the side a little bit, because there are so many things that could potentially be happening in the background that lead to that actual price guide. That you don't have control of. And in some cases, the agent doesn't have control of either. But I think if you do your research, do your due diligence, and get educated on the market and that particular property that you're looking to purchase, you put forward an offer that you think is reasonable and suitable. And in some cases, that might be $100,000 above the price guide. Some cases might be $100,000 below the price guide, right? It's just about really understanding where that true market value sits. And, why I say it could be $100,000 over or $100,000 under is really dependent on the agent, the marketing campaign, their experience themselves in the market, where the vendor's expectations are, how many listings the agent has, and kind of the list goes on.
Yeah, okay. So when you're negotiating, because this is, I guess, what people are paying you for, right, which is to make that pain go away, which is the negotiate part. How are you earning your keep of that negotiation part? So take us through the secret sauce that Matt Sharp has when it comes to negotiating with agents. Obviously, you've built relationships over a very, very long time. So there's some equity in those relationships that you built. But take me through, how are you going about your negotiations, for example?
Yeah. So first thing is, I would say we're very, very in tune with our market, like more so than what we've ever been. We're spending more time quantifying value for properties than what we ever have since I kind of kicked off the business, 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And not only that, we will round table everything with our team of where we think the value sits for this property.
Right.
So there's a lot of energy focused on that. And that's, in most cases, that round table discussion's happening before we're even sitting down with our client, because we all want to make sure that we're in tune and we're hearing everyone's point of view.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of faith and trust in our team's observations of the market as well, right? So the first thing is we're getting really, really clued up on exactly where that property sits with price. And then the second thing is we're chatting with the agent to really understand the true motivation of why the vendor is selling. Have they already bought? Are they under mortgage stress? Are they relocating? Are they just, testing the market? What does that motivation look like? And then we're positioning our clients as best we can to put forward a really, really clean offer and a clean deal. Make us as attractive as possible. So are we flexible on settlement? Do we need to do a 66W? Is there a lease back? Do we need to offer a lease back to allow the vendor to, find their next property, to give them a little bit more time? So we're trying to be as accommodating as we can, but also as strategic as we can as well when we're approaching the agent or the vendor.
Yeah, I love it. Most people go, look, I'm going to offer you this, but that's not an offer. And that's what I guess we're trying to coach a lot of clients, for example. It's obviously your space, which is you can have two similar offers, but if one's talking terms and one's just talking purely price, the agent's going to really want to talk terms and go, we're trying to get to what I call a win-win-win. A win for the vendor, who's ultimately, that's who the agent will look great for. A win for the real estate agent, because that's ultimately, they want to get that listing sold at a great price, and a win for the buyer, which is the agent and the vendor actually want to see that home go to someone that they want to pass this beautiful property on to, right? So how do we think win-win-win? It's like, okay, don't just talk price. Let's talk terms. Let's talk different types of negotiations and different offers. And I guess being willing, because most people think they're a bit cagey when it comes to making an offer and they don't want the agent to kind of push that price up. So how are you taking that off the table? You're saying, look, this is our first and final, for example, or you going, hey, look, give us some feedback about what they're willing to accept?
Yeah, look, I'm glad you brought that up, because the biggest mistake I see out there, not so much with our clients, but just with buyers out in the market, is they see the agent as the enemy.
Spot on.
They can't be the enemy, right?
Yeah.
You need to build rapport with that agent, because at the end of the day, that agent is representing you to the vendor to buy their home or buy the property, right? Yeah. So you've really got to build that rapport with the agent and understand the motivation behind the sale. Now, I can literally give you a real life example. We settled on something a week ago. An elderly couple, they'd been in the property 25 years. It was a family home. They were in their 80s, and we liked the property. It was for an investment for one of our clients, and it's in a highly desirable location, ticks a lot of the boxes, and naturally, there were multiple offers on the table. Now, we were able to uncover the true motivation for why they were selling. So the reason why they were selling is because they were elderly and they were moving to more of a retirement village kind of arrangement, right? But that property wasn't due to be finished. The build wasn't due to be finished until middle of next year, so around 12 months. But they needed to release funds out of the family home to fund the development or to secure their next property. So what we offered was a lease back.
Yeah.
So we got to purchase the property. We had an agreed rental amount, and they can stay in the property until they move into their forever home or their next home, which for them was fantastic. And you mentioned the win-win-win. Well, it is a win-win-win because our client's happy because they've got a tenant already in place, someone that looked after the property like it's their own. We've got the vendor who's happy because they've sold the home and they don't need to move twice now. They can stay in their family home. And then you've got the agent who's really happy because it's a clean deal and their client's happy as well. And that particular property, we actually bought that $15,000 below the highest offer. Now, the reason why they accepted our offer is because we were the only party that were prepared to offer the lease back.
Yeah.
The other people wanted to move in straight away. And I think there was someone even above us that was an investor, but they just hadn't presented a clear kind of path forward in terms of a leaseback option and how things are going to look for the vendor for the next kind of 10 to 12 months.
Correct. And exactly that, asking the question. So you go one question, but you and I are probably trained to go, well, there's actually a question behind that question. Keep asking the agent till you get the answers that you're looking for. And yeah, when you're highly emotionally charged, like I say, from my own experience buying our home, you don't see that side of the equation. It's like, I'm trying to get this property for the lowest possible price. And we want this one versus someone like yourself where you can take a little bit of that heat out of it, that negotiation, go, okay, look, let me do my job. And this is what I love about buyer's agents, which is we're all trying to get to the right outcome. It's just you're not as emotionally invested. Still on the journey, still paid for an outcome, but just that emotion just comes out of it a little bit as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we're there to safeguard and kind of minimize the emotion as well for our clients. We're like the bearer of information. We let them kind of sit on it, and then we speak, we communicate some logical kind of scenarios or some sense into the purchase as well, which kind of reduces their, emotional energy too.
Yeah, correct. Now, I understand from your buyer's agency side that you've kind of been able to expand your geographic location in terms of the sweet spots that you're buying, for example. How does the Central Coast in terms of value stack up against some of the other areas that you're looking at? And then what type of buyers are now looking at kind of becoming borderless investors with the other kind of opportunities that you're looking at at the moment, Matt?
Yeah, so we've been doing the borderless stuff since we kicked the business off. However, it wasn't a major focus of ours because, naturally we're on the Central Coast and a lot of people reach out because geographically that's where we are. Over time though, I guess the interest for borderless investing has grown, and also on the back of some of our client results as well. The outcomes that we've been able to get for our clients has been quite positive in a lot of cases too. So naturally, that grows as well through referrals and whatnot. And I've also, I'm a member of PIPA and I've done my QPIA, which so for that, I need to make sure that I'm across multiple markets and I'm not biased towards one particular area. But when you talk about, are we looking at the Central Coast or are we considering other markets for investors? I think it comes down to their borrowing capacity and their acquisition costs and what that kind of looks like. And also their cash flow position and what yields they're expecting or what yields they need to service that property, and also what's going to suit their overall portfolio the best for them. So for an example, we typically won't buy any properties within a strata. I'm very much, our philosophies are acquire the best piece of land that you can afford in the best location that you can afford. And the dwelling is kind of looked at secondary to that. But also, we're not putting our clients in, majorly negative equity positions, or not equity, sorry, negative cash flow positions. We're very mindful of that too. So it's just about balancing a few of those key components out. But when you talk about interstate, if you compare it to the Central Coast, say Central Coast, for example, at an entry level, you kind of need a minimum of sort of 700,000 to buy a freestanding home in an area that I'd be comfortable to share with a client and present to a client. Interstate certainly offers you to lower price points, so around maybe 500,000, and those interstate properties typically can rent for around $500 a week as well. So 5.2% rental yield, whereas on the Central Coast you're only looking at about 3.2% yield on a property of around 700, 800,000.
Yeah, okay. So I guess weathering that storm for a lot of investors, especially in a rising rate market, which is, cash flow then becomes one of the biggest litmus tests for is that if this still stacks up. What are the other deal breakers or deal makers that you're looking for? So let's go back to the Central Coast market.
Yeah.
When people start with price, you're like, well, hang on, look, we can buy maybe a slightly superior property. Maybe it's not 700, it's 750. But what else are you looking at in terms of the upsides when you're buying on the Central Coast?
Yeah. So firstly, when we're taking our time with buying, right?
Yeah.
And we spoke at the top how, listings are low and the quality properties, are there's even less of those, right? So we're taking our time. We're really strategic with the type of asset that we're buying. But we're not compromising on location and quality. We're making sure that we're getting a good property, and all of our focus is on location. As I said, the bricks and mortar kind of come secondary for that. But something that we are really conscious of at the moment with the rising rate rises is we're looking at properties that have some value add potential through small cosmetic renovations.
Yeah.
And I think that really can safeguard you through a bit of a volatile market. So if you buy in a good area and maybe the property is in original condition, and you buy that property well, if the prices kind of, plateau or come back a little bit and you need to put yourself in a better position, there's obviously opportunity there to do a cosmetic renovation and potentially leverage on that capital growth. So we're looking at those types of properties, but what we're also looking at are properties where we can increase the rental return, so increase the income through potentially an additional bedroom. So can we convert a living room to a fourth bedroom? Can we convert a living room to a fifth bedroom, maybe a garage to an extra bedroom, because that's going to increase the rent, which will help with cash flow and especially the rising rates. And also, I guess in extreme cases, can the block house a granny flat? Nice. So we're doing a lot of these due diligence before we're even engaging with negotiating and whatnot. We're doing all these checks first. And I think in this market at the moment, and we're buy and hold investors, right? I want our clients to hold these properties for the next couple of decades. And at the moment, things are a little bit uncertain. And, when you are, and I've been here myself, when you want to buy an investment property and you're excited and you do your cash flow and you look at it and you think, all right, I'm going to have to put in $400 a week. It's like, I want this property, like, let's do it. I can handle it. And you budget everything out. But, fatigue sets in after 12 months, 24 months. And then you start to think, I might sell it. This property hasn't done anything for me. I wanted to go on holidays. I couldn't do it last year. I wanted to get that new car. Couldn't do it, whatever it looks like. So we're looking at ways where we can safeguard our clients to pull a lever to say, you know what, I'm going to spend a little bit of money here. I'm going to increase the rental income, like I said, through adding a bedroom, adding an additional dwelling, so in a granny flat or something, so that when potentially down the track, if they still start to have those thoughts, it's like, actually, no, wait there. Let me just stick to the course here. I'm going to fix the property up, increase the rent. It's going to help my cash flow, and then I can continue to hold that property for a longer period.
Yeah. The investor mindset, I mean, we're both part of Pippa, and they put out a lot of content in and around, I think, the investor mindset, which is most investors will sell within that 5-year period. Yeah. And they're trying to encourage investors to hold for longer term. How do you get someone to take a longer term view when, maybe some pain sets in, for example, talking private, at some point, private school fees for kids or just cost of living pressures start to, lifestyle creep sets in as well. How are you having those conversations to go, hey guys, we bought this for this reason. We need to hang in there. I know it's hard now without sounding tone deaf or lacking empathy as well.
Yeah, look, it's a hard one. And it's something that we check in with a lot of our clients with, especially first-time investors that maybe bought 2 years ago when interest rates were at 1.9%. Now they're, triple that type thing. But look, I think it's a delicate one because we absolutely want to have a long-term view, okay? Like it's critical. And you want to hold the property for as long as you possibly can, but I guess you don't want to hold that property at the expense of maybe your mental health or your relationship and all of that. So I think for me, our conversation is very much around that first, but then it's like, okay, well, let's have a look where we can be a little bit better here from our cash flow position in our personal life. So where's the non-discretionary spending happening, which I know you're more across than me. I'm definitely not a financial advisor, but
I don't think you need a financial advisor to go, hey, mate, we need to cut out. If you haven't trimmed the fat by now.
So there's that, but we're also looking at, how do you increase your rental income? Is it up to market rent right now? Like some of the areas that we purchased in the last 12 months, the rents have increased 20%. Now, is it at market rent? Have you done a depreciation schedule? Is it a depreciation schedule available? Can we do one of those cosmetic renovations that I spoke about? How can we kind of like squeeze the lemon out of that property to help get you through this period? And if we've exhausted all of those options and it's still not a good spot, and then they're still not in a good spot and still not comfortable, then it's like, okay, well maybe we have to let this one go. But that hasn't happened at all, really. But it is something that we're kind of making sure that our clients are well aware of, and something that we are planning for at the moment for people in the next, little bit, 12, 24, 36 months. But anyone out there shopping around, you really it's critical that you have that long-term view and almost like a helicopter view on the actual property and how the market's performing and how it's going to perform over a longer period.
Yeah, I guess it's it's a real challenge for people to stay the course at the moment, right? We see it at the moment where in such a quick period, within 12, 18 months, things have just, the tide has shifted so quickly. And so for people that had best intentions and now life is very, very different to what it was 12, 18 months ago. It's like, hey, we've got to stay the course without sounding tone deaf to what people are actually going through. It's like, yep, this is going to be some hard times, but we need to kind of see the end result, which is, and we're talking about, a rate cut at some point early next year means that the predicting prices to then start to pick up. So it's like this pain is temporary, and we're going through this at the moment. So how do we come out the other side and be bigger and better for it as well?
Yeah, exactly. And you just need to understand that, real estate happens in cycles. History's shown us that. And some of the markets out there, especially the regional markets across Australia, are still performing really well.
Absolutely.
So property might be costing you a little bit to hold, but that property's going up in value. And essentially that's what an investment is. It cost me $200 a week, 10 grand a year, but this property's gone up in value 50,000 over that period. So, there's a pretty significant return on your investment.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. I want to say thank you very much. If you've loved what Matt's putting out there and you do want to get in touch with Tim at Sharp Property Buyers, please feel free to reach out. I know this is not here to plug your business, for example. You're here to share your knowledge and insights, but if you do kind of resonate or want to connect with Matt, if you're looking to buy or invest on the Central Coast, by all means, they've done a great job and they continue to put one foot in front of the other up there on the coast. So credit to you and your team, Matt. I want to say well done. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you, mate. Pleasure. And well done with everything at Atelier Wealth as well.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. Awesome. If you found that helpful, please leave us a review, or better yet, we always say drop us a line with some questions that you'd love to see answered in future episodes too. And we look forward to bringing you another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast very shortly, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.